They mocked the boy who walked with a crutch. They laughed at the girl with worn-out shoes. They thought wealth and cruelty made them powerful. But when fists flew in that cafeteria, it wasn't money that won. It wasn't muscles. It wasn't the loudest voice. It was a 12-year-old girl who moved like water and fought like thunder. A girl nobody saw coming. A girl who taught an entire school that the quietest person in the room can deliver the loudest lesson. This is the story of how two broken kids became each other's heroes. And if you've ever felt invisible, ever felt powerless, ever wondered if standing up actually matters, you need to hear this. Because what happened next went viral for all the right reasons. Stay with me. This one will restore your faith and courage. Welcome to Voice of Granny. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. You know, sometimes the hardest battles we face aren't on battlefields or in boxing rings. Sometimes they happen in places that are supposed to be safe, like school cafeterias. And sometimes the bravest warriors are the ones nobody sees coming. Let me tell you about a boy named Daniel Foster. Daniel was 12 years old, and he walked differently than other kids. Not because he wanted to, but because he was born that way. His left leg didn't work quite right, so he used a crutch to help him get around. And in the shiny, perfect hallways of Riverside Prep School, being different was like wearing a target on your back. Every morning, Daniel's alarm went off at 6:30, and every morning his stomach twisted into knots, because he knew what was waiting for him. The whispers, the pointing, the laughter that followed him down every hallway like a shadow he couldn't escape. See, Daniel's father was Thomas Foster, one of the richest tech entrepreneurs in the city. The man who built an empire from nothing, who owned towers with his name on them, who shook hands with presidents and celebrities. But here's the thing about having everything. Sometimes it means nothing at all. When Daniel's mother, Grace, passed away from a sudden illness 2 years ago, something in their home died with her. She was the warmth, the laughter, the person who made Daniel feel like walking with a crutch didn't define him. She used to tell him stories at bedtime, her voice soft and full of love. "Danny," she'd say, "the moon doesn't apologize for having craters. It still lights up the whole night sky." But after she was gone, his father buried himself in work. Meetings, conference calls, business trips to London, Tokyo, New York. Thomas Foster loved his son, truly he did. But he showed it through bank accounts and expensive gifts, not bedtime stories or parent-teacher meetings. And Daniel, he learned to be small, to take up less space, to hope that if he stayed quiet enough, maybe the bullies would forget he existed. They never did. Across town, in a neighborhood where the streetlights flickered and the buildings needed paint, lived a girl named Sierra Martinez. Sierra was also 12. But while Daniel rode to school in a private car with leather seats, Sierra took 2 buses every morning. While Daniel ate lunch alone because nobody wanted to sit with him, Sierra ate alone because nobody thought she belonged there at all. You see, Sierra was at Riverside Prep on a scholarship. A full ride because her grades were perfect and her essay made the admissions board cry. But scholarships don't come with designer backpacks or expensive sneakers. They don't erase the fact that her jeans came from the discount store and her lunch was packed in old containers her mother washed and reused every single day. Sierra's mother, Rosa, worked as a hospital custodian. Night shifts that left her exhausted, her hands raw from cleaning supplies, her back aching from mopping endless floors. But Rosa never complained. She worked because she believed in something bigger. She believed Sierra deserved a chance at a better life. And Sierra's father? He was gone. But not in the way you might think. Rafael Martinez had been a boxing coach. A good one. He ran a small gym in their neighborhood, teaching kids how to throw punches, sure, but more importantly, teaching them discipline. Respect. How to defend themselves and others. His gym wasn't fancy. The equipment was old, the ring had patches, and the walls had water stains. But it was a sanctuary. Rafael's rules were simple, and he made Sierra memorize them. Never throw the first punch. Never fight to prove you're tough. Fight only to protect someone who can't protect themselves. When Sierra was 10, her father's heart gave out during a training session. One moment he was laughing, demonstrating a combination. The next he was gone. Just like that. No warning. No goodbye. The gym closed. The equipment was sold. But Sierra kept training. Alone in their small apartment, she practiced the moves her father taught her. Every jab, every block, every stance was a conversation with a ghost. A promise that his lessons wouldn't die with him. At Riverside Prep, nobody knew Sierra could fight. They saw a quiet girl with worn-out shoes who ate plain rice and beans while they ordered sushi and gourmet sandwiches. They saw someone who didn't belong. Someone to ignore or worse, to mock. "Nice shoes," someone sneered once. "Did you get those from the trash?" Sierra never responded. She just kept eating, her face calm, her hands steady. Because her father taught her something else too. That silence isn't weakness. Sometimes silence is strength waiting for the right moment. So here they were. Two kids in the same school, living in completely different worlds. Daniel, drowning in wealth but starving for connection. Sierra, struggling with poverty but rich in discipline and purpose. Both of them invisible in their own way. Both of them carrying grief that nobody else could see. Daniel's mother used to tell him the moon doesn't apologize for its craters. Sierra's father used to tell her that true strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about knowing when not to. And fate, as it always does, was about to put both of those lessons to the test. Because in that cafeteria at Riverside Prep, something was brewing. Something that had been building for months. Years even. The kind of cruelty that grows when good people look away. When phones record instead of helping. When being popular matters more than being kind. Daniel didn't know it yet, but his worst day was coming. And Sierra didn't know it yet, but she was about to become someone's hero. Sometimes the quietest people in the room are the ones who change everything. And this is one of those stories. Are you ready? Because what happens next will make you believe in courage again. It was a Thursday, late October. The cafeteria at Riverside Prep was buzzing with the usual chaos. You know the sound. Trays clattering. Laughter echoing off expensive tile floors. The smell of fresh pizza and fancy salads filling the air. Everything at Riverside Prep was designed to impress. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Tables made of polished wood. Even the trash cans looked expensive. But beneath all that shine, there was something ugly. Something that had been festering for way too long. His name was Brett Collins. Tall, athletic, blonde hair always perfectly styled. His father owned a chain of luxury hotels. His mother was on every charity board in the city. Brett wore sneakers that cost more than some people's rent. And he ruled Riverside Prep like a king who never had to worry about losing his throne. Behind him were his two friends, Tyler Ross and Kyle Sherman. They followed Brett everywhere, laughing at his jokes even when they weren't funny, joining in whenever he decided someone was worth mocking. Together, they were untouchable. Or at least, that's what they thought. Daniel had learned to sense them coming. The way prey senses a predator. He'd be sitting alone at his corner table, trying to eat his lunch in peace, and he'd feel it. That shift in the air. That tension. And then Brett's voice would slice through everything. "Hey, hop along. Daddy's money still can't fix those legs, huh?" Laughter would ripple through the cafeteria. Not from everyone. Some kids looked uncomfortable. But nobody said anything. Nobody ever did. On this particular Thursday, Daniel was eating quietly. His crutch leaned against the table beside him. His lunch, some kind of gourmet sandwich he didn't even want, sat half-eaten on his tray. He was thinking about his mother. About how she used to pack his lunches with little notes inside. "You're braver than you know," they'd say. He missed those notes. He missed her. He didn't see Brett coming until it was too late. The shove came hard and fast. Brett's hand slammed into Daniel's shoulder, sending him lurching forward. His tray tipped, spilling juice across the table, soaking his shirt in cold, sticky liquid. His crutch clattered to the floor. The cafeteria erupted. Not with concern. With excitement. "Oh!" someone shouted. "Did you see that?" Phones came out immediately. Dozens of them. Recording from every angle. Because at Riverside Prep, cruelty wasn't just tolerated. It was entertainment. Brett reached down and grabbed Daniel's crutch, holding it high above his head like a trophy. "Who wants it?" he called out, grinning. "Any takers?" Tyler and Kyle howled with laughter. Some kids in the back started chanting. "Fight! Fight! Fight!" Daniel's face burned with shame. His hands trembled as he tried to steady himself. He wanted to disappear. To melt into the floor. To be anywhere but here. And then he heard her. "Put it down." The voice was quiet. Calm. But it cut through the noise like a knife. Everyone turned. And there she was. Sierra Martinez, standing up from her corner table. Her worn backpack still on her shoulder. Her plain clothes looking even plainer next to everyone else's designer outfits. She walked forward slowly, her face completely neutral. No anger. No fear. Just steady determination. Brett's grin widened. Well, well, well. Look who it is. Scholarship Sally. Tyler snorted. What are you going to do, charity case? Cry about it. But Sierra didn't respond. She walked straight past Brett, bent down, and carefully picked up the juice-soaked tray from Daniel's table. She set it upright. Then she picked up his chair, which had been knocked askew, and placed it back where it belonged. Daniel stared at her, stunned. Brett laughed louder. Oh, this is precious. You his bodyguard now. Sierra turned to face him. Still calm. Still quiet. I said put it down. Brett's smile faltered for just a second. Then he stepped closer, towering over her. Or what? The cafeteria held its breath. Every phone zoomed in. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The moment someone finally stood up to Brett Collins. And then Brett made his mistake. He shoved Daniel again. Harder this time. Daniel stumbled backward, arms flailing, certain he was about to fall. But Sierra was there. Her hand caught his shoulder, steadying him with surprising strength. She didn't even look like she'd moved. But suddenly Daniel was upright, balanced, safe. Brett's face twisted with anger. You want to fight? Fine. Let's see what you got. He swung. A big, wild punch aimed right at Sierra's face. What happened next, nobody could quite believe. Sierra moved. Not fast. Not dramatically. Just smoothly. Like water flowing around a rock. Brett's fist cut through empty air where her head had been a split second before. His momentum carried him forward, off balance. And Sierra? She barely touched him. Just a gentle redirection. A slight pivot of her body. And suddenly Brett was stumbling, crashing into the table behind him with a loud bang that echoed through the cafeteria. Silence. Complete, total silence. And then someone whispered, Did you see that? Kyle charged forward, his face red with fury. He swung his leg in a clumsy kick aimed at Daniel. But Sierra was faster. Her hands moved so quickly they almost blurred. She caught his leg, twisted slightly, and Kyle flipped backward, landing flat on his back with a thud that made everyone wince. The cafeteria exploded. Gasps. Screams. Shocked laughter. Phones shaking in hands that couldn't believe what they were recording. Brett scrambled to his feet, breathing hard, his perfect hair finally messed up. He looked at Sierra like he was seeing her for the first time. Really seeing her. And Sierra? She calmly walked over, picked up Daniel's crutch, and handed it back to him. Stand tall, she whispered. And for the first time in 2 years, Daniel Foster did exactly that. You could hear a pin drop in that cafeteria. Every single person was frozen, staring at Sierra like she'd just performed magic. And maybe in a way she had. Brett Collins was on his feet, his face beet red, his chest heaving. He'd never been embarrassed like this. Never been knocked down literally and figuratively, in front of the entire school. And he couldn't stand it. You're done, he spat at Sierra, pointing a shaking finger at her. You're so done. You just assaulted me. Both of us. You're getting expelled. Tyler, still groaning on the floor, nodded frantically. We're pressing charges. My dad's a lawyer. The crowd murmured nervously. Some kids looked worried for Sierra. Others looked disappointed that the show might be over. And then the cafeteria doors burst open. Mrs. Patterson, the vice principal, stormed in. She was a tall woman with sharp features and an even sharper attitude. Her heels clicked like a judge's gavel against the tile floor. Her eyes swept the scene. Brett disheveled and angry. Kyle on the floor. Daniel soaking wet. And Sierra, standing calm and steady in the middle of it all. What is going on here? Mrs. Patterson demanded. Brett jumped in immediately. She attacked us. That girl. He pointed at Sierra. She assaulted me and Kyle for no reason. We want her expelled. Now. Mrs. Patterson's jaw tightened. She looked at Sierra. Is this true? Sierra opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, a voice rang out from the back of the cafeteria. No, it's not true. Everyone turned. A girl named Hannah Chen stepped forward, her phone held high. Hannah was a junior, quiet, artistic, someone who usually kept to herself. But her hand was steady, and her voice was clear. I recorded everything, Hannah said. Every single second. Mrs. Patterson's eyebrows rose. Show me. Hannah walked to the front of the cafeteria where a large smartboard hung on the wall. She connected her phone, and suddenly the video filled the screen. Crystal clear. Every detail captured. The cafeteria watched in silence as it all played out again. Brett shoving Daniel. The juice spilling. The crutch being held like a trophy. The chanting. Brett shoving Daniel a second time, harder. And then Sierra stepping in. Not attacking. Defending. Every movement she made was in response to Brett and Kyle coming at her first. She never threw a punch, never started anything. She only redirected their own aggression back at them. When the video ended, the cafeteria erupted. Not with laughter this time. With anger. Righteous, burning anger. Brett started it. She was protecting Daniel. She didn't even hit them. Mrs. Patterson's face had gone pale. She looked at Brett, then at Kyle, then back at the screen. "Is this accurate?" she asked Hannah. "Every frame," Hannah said firmly. She turned to address the crowd. "I'm tired of watching people get hurt and nobody doing anything about it. This video shows the truth. Sierra didn't attack anyone. She defended someone who couldn't defend himself." Brett's face drained of color. He looked around wildly, searching for support, but even his usual followers were backing away. The evidence was undeniable. Mrs. Patterson straightened her shoulders. "Brett Collins. Kyle Sherman. My office. Now." "But Brett started. "Now." As the two boys slunk toward the exit, heads down, phones still recording their walk of shame, Mrs. Patterson turned to Sierra and Daniel. Her expression softened slightly. "You two. Come with me as well. We need statements." But before they could move, something unexpected happened. The cafeteria doors opened again, and in walked Thomas Foster, Daniel's father. Everyone recognized him instantly. The tech billionaire. The man whose face appeared on magazine covers and news programs. He was wearing an expensive suit, but his tie was loose, his hair slightly messy, like he'd rushed here. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on Daniel. "Dad!" Daniel's voice was small, confused. "What are you doing here?" Thomas Foster crossed the cafeteria in long strides. He knelt down in front of his son, right there in front of everyone, completely unconcerned with the hundreds of phones pointed at them. "I saw the video," Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion. "Someone posted it online. It's everywhere. And he paused, swallowing hard. "I saw my son being hurt. And I saw that I wasn't there." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, I'm okay." "No," Thomas said firmly, gently gripping Daniel's shoulders. "You're not okay. You haven't been okay for a long time. And I haven't been paying attention. I've been so focused on building companies and making money that I forgot the only thing that actually matters. You." The cafeteria was silent now. Not the excited silence of watching a fight. The reverent silence of witnessing something deeply personal and real. Thomas stood and turned to Sierra. "You're Sierra Martinez?" She nodded, suddenly nervous. "You protected my son when I couldn't," Thomas said, his voice cracking. "When I should have been here, you were. Thank you doesn't feel like enough, but thank you." Sierra's eyes glistened. "I just did what anyone should do." "But they didn't," Thomas said, gesturing to the room. "You did. That takes real courage." He turned back to Mrs. Patterson. "Whatever disciplinary action is being considered for Sierra, you can stop right now. I've already spoken with Principal Hayes on my way here. Sierra acted in defense of my son. If anyone tries to punish her for that, they'll have to deal with me. And believe me, I can be very difficult to deal with." Mrs. Patterson nodded stiffly. "Understood, Mr. Foster." Thomas looked around the cafeteria one more time. "And to everyone else here, I hope you learned something today. Real strength isn't about money or popularity or who can yell the loudest. It's about standing up when it would be easier to stay quiet. It's about protecting people who need help." He put his arm around Daniel's shoulders. "Come on, son. Let's go home. We have a lot to talk about." As they walked toward the exit, Daniel paused and looked back at Sierra. "Thank you," he said quietly. Sierra smiled. A real, genuine smile. "Stand tall, remember?" And as father and son left together, the cafeteria finally understood what they'd witnessed. Not just a fight, not just viral content, but a turning point. The moment when courage defeated cruelty. When doing the right thing mattered more than being popular. The phones were still recording. But this time, they were capturing something beautiful. By that evening, the video had exploded across the internet like wildfire. It started on Instagram, posted by Hannah with a simple caption. "This is what real courage looks like. Sierra Martinez defending Daniel Foster at Riverside Prep. Watch until the end." Within 2 hours, it had 50,000 views. By midnight, 2 million. By morning, it was trending on every platform imaginable. TikTok creators made edits with dramatic music swelling as Sierra moved with that impossible grace. Twitter threads analyzed every frame, praising her technique and restraint. YouTube commentary channels covered it with titles like "Scholarship Student Humbles Bullies with Discipline," and "This is what real martial arts looks like." The comments section became a place of healing for thousands of people. I was bullied for 6 years. Watching this made me cry. Someone finally stood up. Notice how she never threw a punch? That's real training. That's discipline. The way she gave him back his crutch and said, "Stand tall." I'm not crying, you're crying. This girl is a hero. Period. But it wasn't just the fight that captured attention. People started digging deeper. Who was Sierra Martinez? Where did she learn to move like that? A reporter from a local news station found old community center records. Photos surfaced of a small, rundown boxing gym with a faded sign. Martinez Boxing, where champions are built. More photos showed a man in his 40s, strong and kind-faced, teaching kids how to wrap their hands. Rafael Martinez, Sierra's father. The news segment aired at 6 o'clock, and the anchor spoke with genuine emotion. Tonight, we're learning more about the young woman who defended a classmate at Riverside Prep. Sierra Martinez, age 12, is the daughter of the late Rafael Martinez, a beloved boxing coach who ran a community gym in the West Side neighborhood. Rafael passed away suddenly 2 years ago, but his legacy clearly lives on. He didn't just teach kids how to fight. He taught them when not to fight. And tonight, his daughter showed the world exactly what he meant. They played the cafeteria footage side by side with old footage of Rafael teaching a young Sierra how to block punches, how to redirect momentum, how to stay calm under pressure. The resemblance was striking. The same focused eyes, the same economical movements, the same unwavering calm. The anchor continued. Rafael Martinez's gym closed after his death, and his family has struggled financially ever since. But what they lack in money, they clearly possess in values. Sierra Martinez didn't use her skills to show off or seek revenge. She used them exactly as her father taught her, to protect someone who couldn't protect themselves. The story went national, then international. News outlets from London to Tokyo covered it. Everyone wanted to know more about the girl with the worn-out shoes who moved like water and fought like a guardian angel. But the most important viewing happened in 2 very different homes. In the Foster penthouse, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline, Thomas Foster sat on the couch beside Daniel. For the first time in months, his phone was face down on the coffee table. Ignored. His laptop was closed. No emails. No conference calls. No board meetings. Just father and son, watching the video together for what must have been the 10th time. She made it look easy, Daniel said softly, his head resting on his father's shoulder. That's because she's been training her whole life, Thomas replied. Not for glory. For moments exactly like this. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, Mom would have liked her. Thomas felt his throat tighten. Yes, she would have. I miss her, Dad. I know, buddy. I miss her too. Thomas pulled Daniel closer. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I've been so absent. I thought providing for you, making sure you had everything, was enough. But you don't need everything. You need me. Daniel looked up at his father. Are you going to disappear again? Thomas met his son's eyes. No, I promise. No more choosing work over you. No more missing the important stuff. But your company will be fine without me being there every second, Thomas said firmly. You know what your mother used to tell me? She said the moon doesn't apologize for having craters. She was talking about you, about your leg, about how you didn't need to be fixed to be perfect. But I think she was also talking about me. About how I didn't need to build an empire to be a good father. I just needed to be present. Daniel smiled. A real smile. The first genuine one Thomas had seen in months. Across town, in a small apartment where the heat didn't always work, and the walls were thin enough to hear neighbors arguing, Sierra and her mother sat on their worn-out couch. Rosa Martinez still wore her hospital custodian uniform, too tired to change after her shift. But she held her daughter's hand tightly, tears streaming down her face as she watched the news coverage. Your father would be so proud, Rosa whispered. So proud. Sierra leaned against her mother. I did what he taught me. That's all. That's everything, Mija, Rosa said. In a world that tells people to fight back harder, to match cruelty with cruelty, you showed them another way. Your father's way. The news anchor was interviewing people from their old neighborhood now. Older teens who'd trained in Rafael's gym years ago. Coach Martinez saved my life, one young man said, wiping his eyes. I was heading down a bad path. Gangs, violence, all of it. But he taught me discipline. Respect. He taught me that real strength is protecting people, not hurting them. Seeing Sierra do that today, man, it's like Coach is still here, still teaching us. Rosa squeezed Sierra's hand. Do you know what you've done? You haven't just protected one boy. You've reminded the world what your father stood for. You've made his legacy live again. Sierra felt tears welling up. She'd been strong all day. Calm in the cafeteria. Composed during the questioning. Steady when the cameras started showing up. But here, safe in her mother's arms, she finally let herself cry. I miss him, Mama. I know, baby. I know. They sat together in their small apartment as the world outside buzzed with their story. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. News segments and interviews and social media posts. But none of it mattered as much as this moment. Mother and daughter. Remembering the man who taught them both what it means to be strong. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, they just held each other and let his memory wrap around them like a warm blanket. The following Monday, Riverside Prep was a different place. You could feel it the moment you walked through the doors. The energy had shifted. The power balance had changed. Brett Collins and Kyle Sherman returned to school, but they weren't the same boys who'd ruled the cafeteria just days before. They walked with their heads down, their swagger gone. Brett's father had made them record a public apology video, and it had been shared almost as widely as the original footage. In it, both boys admitted what they'd done and apologized not just to Daniel and Sierra, but to every person they'd ever mocked or bullied over the years. We thought being popular meant being powerful, Brett said in the video, his voice shaking. We thought putting other people down would make us bigger. But all it did was make us small. Really small. And we're sorry. When they arrived at school, Principal Hayes was waiting. He called a mandatory assembly. Every student filed into the auditorium, phones buzzing with speculation. What was going to happen? Principal Hayes stood at the podium, his expression serious. Last Thursday, something happened in our cafeteria that has now been seen by millions of people worldwide. And I'm not proud of what it revealed about our school culture. The auditorium was silent. For too long, we've allowed cruelty to hide behind popularity. We've let students believe that wealth or status gives them permission to hurt others. We've created an environment where good people stay quiet because speaking up seems too hard, too risky. He paused, letting his words sink in. But last Thursday, 2 students showed us a different way. Daniel Foster, would you please stand? Daniel, sitting in the middle row with his father beside him, slowly stood up. His crutch supported him, but his back was straight. His head was high. Daniel has endured bullying at this school for 2 years. And instead of becoming bitter or cruel himself, he remained kind. That takes tremendous courage. Applause began to ripple through the auditorium. Tentative at first, then building. And Sierra Martinez, would you stand please? Sierra stood from her seat near the back. She looked uncomfortable with the attention, but she stood anyway. Sierra could have used her skills to seek revenge, to show off, to humiliate the boys who were attacking her friend. But she didn't. She defended without destroying. She protected without punishing. She embodied the very best of what martial arts teaches: control, discipline, and compassion. The applause grew louder. Students stood. First a few, then more than everyone. A standing ovation that echoed through the auditorium. From this day forward, Principal Hayes continued, Riverside Prep will be different. We're implementing a new anti-bullying program. We're creating peer mediation groups. And we're establishing the Rafael Martinez Memorial Scholarship, funded by an anonymous donor. He glanced at Thomas Foster, who gave a slight nod. Thomas had quietly donated $500,000 that morning, enough to give 10 students like Sierra full scholarships every year forever. This scholarship will honor Sierra's father, a man who taught children that real strength is about protecting others. And it will ensure that students from all backgrounds can attend this school, bringing with them the values and perspectives that make us stronger as a community. The applause was deafening now. After the assembly, something beautiful happened. Students who'd never spoken to Daniel before came up to him. Not to mock him, to apologize. I'm sorry I laughed, one girl said, tears in her eyes. I should have stood up for you. I was afraid, a boy admitted. Afraid if I defended you, I'd become a target too. But that was wrong. I'm sorry. And Daniel? He forgave them. Every single one. Because his mother had taught him that holding on to anger only makes the weight heavier. Sierra found herself surrounded too. But not by apologies. By questions. Will you teach us? One girl asked shyly. My little brother gets bullied. I want to help him. I want to learn discipline, another student said. Not to fight, just to feel stronger inside. By lunchtime, Sierra had 15 students asking if she'd consider starting a martial arts club at school. She looked at them, overwhelmed, and then smiled. Okay, she said. But we do it my father's way. We learn to defend, not attack. We train our minds as much as our bodies. And we promise to protect those who can't protect themselves. They all agreed immediately. That afternoon, as school ended, Daniel found Sierra by her locker. His father waited nearby, giving them space but staying close. Being present like he'd promised. Hey, Daniel said. Hey yourself. I never properly thanked you. Sierra shook her head. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. Daniel's voice was firm. You didn't just save me from getting hurt. You saved me from believing I was helpless. My whole life, I felt like my leg made me weak. Like I needed protecting. But watching you, he paused, searching for the right words. You showed me that strength isn't about how your body works. It's about what you choose to do when someone needs help. Sierra's eyes glistened. Your mom was right, you know. About what? About the moon and its craters. My dad used to say something similar. He'd say, a diamond isn't valuable because it's perfect. It's valuable because it survived the pressure. You survived, Daniel. And you're stronger than you know. They stood there for a moment, two kids who'd found each other in the worst circumstances and emerged as friends. Thomas Foster approached, clearing his throat gently. Sierra, your mother just arrived. But before you go, I wanted to ask you something. Yes, sir? How would you feel about running a martial arts program? Not just at Riverside Prep, but across the city. We could reopen your father's gym. Expand it. Train instructors in his methods. Teach thousands of kids what you showed everyone last Thursday. Sierra's mouth fell open. I don't know what to say. You don't have to decide now, Thomas said kindly. But think about it. Your father's legacy deserves to reach more people. And you deserve resources that match your incredible heart. Rosa Martinez appeared in the hallway then, still in her hospital uniform. When she saw Thomas Foster talking to her daughter, she tensed, protective instincts kicking in. But Thomas approached her with respect, hand extended. Mrs. Martinez? I'm Thomas Foster. Your daughter saved my son. And she reminded me what truly matters. Thank you for raising such an extraordinary young woman. Rosa shook his hand, tears forming. She gets it from her father. Then he must have been an incredible man. As they talked about possibilities and programs and ways to honor Raphael's memory, Daniel and Sierra walked outside together. The afternoon sun was warm. Students passed by, some waving, some stopping to talk. Everything felt different now. Lighter somehow. Stand tall, Sierra had told him in that cafeteria. And as they walked side by side, Daniel Foster finally understood what she meant. Standing tall wasn't about having perfect legs or a perfect body. It was about having a perfect heart. It was about refusing to let cruelty make you small. It was about knowing your worth even when others tried to tell you otherwise. They were just two 12-year-old kids. One who walked with a crutch. One who wore secondhand clothes. Neither perfect. Both extraordinary. And together, they'd shown their school, their city, and eventually the world, the most important lesson of all. The quietest voice in the room can deliver the loudest message. Discipline will always defeat arrogance. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply stand tall and refuse to fall. This is their story. But it's also yours. Because we all have moments when we need to decide. Will we stand up or stay quiet? Will we protect or walk away? Will we be the person who changes everything, or the person who watches it happen? Choose to be the one who stands tall. Choose to be the one who protects. Choose courage over comfort. Because the world doesn't need more bullies. It needs more people like Daniel and Sierra. People who know that real strength isn't about fighting. It's about having the discipline not to fight unless someone needs defending. And when that moment comes, stand tall. Always stand tall.